Hi, this is Charmaine. I'd like to welcome you into my kitchen for one of my cooking classes. I hope you'll enjoy. See you in class. Hi, I'm Charmaine, also known as Mama Vega. And right here in this picture, what you see a cottage pie. Sometimes it's called a shepherd's pie. This particular picture, what you see here, this is a plant-based version. And what I'm going to show you is a meat version, but it can also be made as a plant version. So you're going to see a combination, and I'm going to explain something to you so that either way, whichever way you want to make it, you would be able to do that. So this whole episode is about making a cottage pie, and I hope you'll enjoy it. The first thing I want you to know is the difference between a cottage pie and a shepherd's pie. And a cottage pie is made with meat, some type of meat, like a ground beef or something like that, or even turkey. That would be considered a cottage pie. A shepherd's pie is made from lamb. And the reason they called it a shepherd's pie is because the shepherds were out, doing the sheep and the lamb and stuff like that. And that's why it was called a shepherd's pie. What we're going to do here is going to be called a cottage pie. We're also going to use fresh vegetables. The vegetables that I'm using here are going to be like carrots and squash and things of that nature. Traditional shepherd's pie, they usually use corn and other ingredients that they could generally find that was there, whatever vegetables were there that were available. You also use potatoes and things of that nature, but you're going to see exactly what it is that I use and why I use it. But I'm doing it this way so that you would be able to do a variation of it in order to meet your family's palate, whatever you like to eat, whatever your traditions are. So it's giving you an overview of what you can do and how you can do it without giving you a specific thing that you have to do, because there is nothing that's specific when it comes to recipes. You can change it however you'd like to for your palate. Why be specific? So this one is a little bit different, where I'm going to give you an overview. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do before I get started is I'm going to make sure all my surfaces are clean. So I'm going to sterilize my sinks and all my surfaces and wash those all down. Next, I'm going to wash my hands because I've already sterilized everything else. So now it's time for me to sterilize and wash my hands. So, and the way you do that is I like to get mine up my arm as well, so that if there's any dirt or anything that may fall off, it won't go into the food. You're going to make sure you get your thumbs. You're going to get your nails. I happen to have a little brush that I can use to make sure that under my nails get done, as well as the center part of my hand. You can use, if you don't have like a nail brush, you can use something like a vegetable brush, but just make sure you just use it just for doing your hand and not your hands and your vegetables. So I like to, the palm of my hand, my wrist, and the best thing to do is not to wear any jewelry when you're cooking in the kitchen, or any bracelets or anything, because food can get trapped underneath it and then fall into the food and cross-contaminate as well. So you want to make sure you get all areas of your hand, your thumbs, between your fingers, so you want to make sure you get all of that. And then I rinse my little brush out, and then I set it where it can dry. But another thing I like to do is take a little bit more soap, and where I would have touched my sprayer to get my soap, I like to also clean the soap dispenser, because when you first touched it, your hands were dirty, and if you don't wash it off, then it's not going to do you any good. So you rinse your hands off, make sure you get up your arms, the center of your fingers here, and all of your nails, your wrist. You're going to rinse that off, and I use pretty hot water myself. And then what you're going to do is you're going to use a paper towel, or what they call a single serve, and not a cloth or anything like that, because there could be something else on that and that would cross-contaminate. So this is what you call a single serve. So you're just going to use a single serve paper towel to dry your hands off. Okay, so the first ingredient that you're going to use is you're going to use potatoes. Here I'm using russet potatoes and I'm peeling them. You're going to save the peeling so that you can put it in the your compost or something of that nature. You're going to make sure that one of the things you do not do is do not put it down the garbage disposal, because the fibers and everything in there can clog that up. So make sure that when you do that, you do not put it down the garbage disposal. That's the last thing you want to do unless you want to call a plumber. But I'm using russet potatoes. I have 3 potatoes that I'm using for this particular recipe, but you can use any type of potato you would like to. Red potatoes are very delicious for this as well. I've used red potatoes. I've used the golden potatoes, and I do like the golden potatoes because when I use the golden potatoes, I don't peel them, and because the skin is so thin and so sweet, it's almost buttery, that you don't need anything else to it. So I happen to have russet potatoes, so I use the russet potatoes, but if you have golden potatoes, those are even better. They have a sweeter, more buttery taste to them. So that's a thought for you. First thing you're going to do is you're going to take the potatoes and you're going to dice them up. And after you dice them, you're going to put them in some water and you're going to let them cook until they're like tender fork, where you can just put a little fork in them, and then they're easier for you to now whip when you get ready, excuse me, when you get ready to whip them. I also got 1 onion, but I took the onion and what I did with that is I cut it up very tiny so it's minced. So those are the 2 things you have right now, and that's what you're going to get started. But the potatoes, what you'll do is put them in water, start them to boil and cook. If you'd like to, you can also put them in the oven and roast them, but make sure they're covered so that they don't dry out, because you don't want them too dry. You want to be able to whip them. The next thing I did is I got some vegetables. Here's where one of your variations comes. This is one of the variations. I happen to use, as you can see in the picture, I have zucchini and broccoli and carrots and things like that. The person I was making this for, those are the vegetables that they wanted. However, traditionally it would have like carrots and peas and onions and things of that nature. But I chose to do these for this person because that's what they wanted. And then I added the onions. Here is where I'm adding my onions to this. I add some of the onion, not all of it, but some of it. And what I do here is I add some seasonings to the vegetable. That would be a little Italian seasoning, salt, pepper. I add things like that to it to try to give it flavor. And those of you who've watched my videos before, or I've cooked for you, you know that I call that layering. I like to make sure that before I put anything together, every single component is seasoned separately so that when it goes together, you have this bursting of flavor. So I want to make sure that you understand that you season everything all along the way, not just putting it all together or putting it in a crock pot and just saying, okay, I'm going to cook it all and then it's all done, because you don't have the notes. You won't have the ups and downs and you won't have the different textures, and that's very important. Okay, here's where I'm going to give you the actual recipe of what I did, and that is you have the 3 potatoes, you have the 1 onion, 4 to 6 cups of vegetables, depending upon the vegetables that you're using. This one I use 2 pounds of meat, which is ground beef for this, but you can also use beans or anything else that you want to get the protein if you want a protein. You don't have to. You can make the whole thing just all vegetables and just different textures. And then you just and then I also added some seasoned tomatoes, and that was 1 cup of seasoned tomatoes that I added. Here, what you see in the picture that's there is where I took a potato masher and I mashed the vegetables. But if you can notice in the picture, I didn't mash them all so that they're real mushy. I didn't put them in a blender to blend them. I used a potato masher, and the reason I did that is because I'm going to end up with different textures. Everything will not be like baby food. It won't be like a puree. It's going to have different textures to it. Here's where I got started with the meat. So while I finished mashing or smashing, whichever way you want to call it, the vegetables, the meat was actually cooking on the stove while I was doing that. But, you know, for the purposes of this, I'm trying to show you step by step what you do. So I took the meat, put it in a frying pan, and I just had a little bit of water. I did not add any additional oil, so this does not come out oily, so that whatever juices are in the meat, it's going to come out. This one happened to be like a 95% lean, so it's only going to have predominantly water that's going to come out. And I also season my meat as it's cooking. I started cooking a little bit first, but I season it so that the seasonings will get immersed and infused into the meat itself. And this is where I add also some onions, and I add the tomatoes to this. After it cooks a little bit, then I add the onion and tomatoes and let that simmer. So you're going to mix that in. Again, we did the vegetables. So now that the vegetables are seasoned and smashed, remember that's all marinating together, the seasonings that you use there. Now you're going to do the meat. And when you cook the meat is going to marinate and get all of its seasonings together. We still have it separate. We haven't done anything with it yet. Okay, so just remember that. It's all in layers. Now, going back to the potatoes, so we have the vegetables, we have the meat, and now both of those should be setting aside. Now I'm going back to the potatoes. And if for some reason the potatoes were done before you finish, what you can do is drain them, drain the potatoes, and then cover them so that they will retain some of the moisture. That's what you do. So if the potatoes got finished before you did the others, what I want you to do is take them, drain them, put a lid on them so that the heat will stay and the moisture will stay until you can get back to them while you're finishing up everything else, if that happened to have happened. When you finish with your meat, you're going to take the juices from the meat and you're going to put it in a bowl or a cup. You're going to drain that off so that you don't have any liquids in there. You're going to take all those juices out. If you have any juices from the vegetables, if you didn't cook it all the way down, whatever juices you have from the vegetables, you're going to take that and add it to the juices that you got from the meat. So now you have all the juices. You're going to take those, drain them off. What you're going to do with those particular juices, you're going to add it to the potatoes. And now you're going to whip your potatoes. And that's what I'm doing here in the picture on the right. I'm adding those juices to my potatoes, and the picture on the left is where I've whipped them all together. And this is where if you have if you want to add butter, I did not because the person who I made this for, they couldn't. That's one of the reasons why I added the juices also, because I'm giving it that extra flavor. This is where you can add a little bit of salt. I happen to use a Celtic sea salt, you know, for this, and a little bit of pepper. So you can add salt and pepper here at this particular point, or a vegetable seasoning. Anything you want to do at this point is where you would add the seasoning plus the juices that you would have had from the other things, because now what you're doing is you're kind of infusing the potatoes with the juices and the seasonings from the meat and from the vegetables. So you see what I'm doing? You're building. This is the building process that I'm doing, so that all of your flavors, when you're done, you're going to taste the flavors all the way through everything. It's going to blend very nicely. Now you see in this picture, I have enough where I can make 2 pies at the same time. I didn't tell you that in the beginning because I wanted you to see this. You can make 2 pies. So what you end up doing is taking some of, just a little bit, of the whipped potatoes, and that goes on the bottom. You put the whipped potatoes on the bottom. Then what you're going to do is take some of the vegetables, whichever vegetables you used, you're going to put that as your next layer. And then you will put the potatoes on top of that. So you see, starting from your right dish to the left. So you're going to, you know, it's my right, so it may be different for you, but it's my right. So you see the two dishes there. You're going to take the 2 dishes, you're going to put potatoes in the bottom of the dishes. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take the vegetables, you're going to layer it with vegetables, and then you're going to put the meat on top of that. Everything is seasoned. Potatoes are seasoned, the vegetables are seasoned, and the meat is seasoned. And then on top, what you're going to do is you're going to add the remaining potatoes. So you have potatoes, vegetable, meat, potatoes. That's what you saw in the very first picture that I showed you. The very first picture, that's what you would have seen, is that it was layered that way, and then you have the potatoes on top. Okay, that's that. So now you're done with doing that. And then what you do is you put it in the oven, and when you put it in the oven, you bake it for approximately an hour. Sometimes it can be an hour and a half depending on your oven, and that will depend on whether you have an electric oven, a gas oven, whatever. But I put mine at 350 degrees, and if you're not sure whether it's enough, you put it in at 350 until it's golden brown, or just a little bit of golden brown on top. You don't want it brown or anything, because remember, too brown, I should say. You want it brown, like a golden brown, but not too brown, because remember, everything is already cooked. So everything in there is cooked. You're just pretty much heating it up and giving it that nice glow. So people will like to go, ooh, you know, what about that? So now chew on this. And you can see when people got wind of I had it done, they started eating it, and eating it very fast. Within 1 hour, the whole thing was gone. So I had to try to quickly get this picture, you know, in order to be able to do this video, because otherwise I wouldn't have had the picture at all. They were eating it so fast. And this is what they said. They actually said, "Hello, food. You know, I can't wait for this to go inside my tummy." They just loved it. They loved it. And like I said, again, make sure you layer everything. Every single layer is called infusing. You're infusing all the different flavors all throughout the whole process. And you will not be disappointed if you do that. Your guests will not be disappointed. Your family will love it. And you can change it each time. Each time it doesn't have to be the same. That's the beauty of this. And also, if you're not sure, just whatever you have in the refrigerator. Don't make it complicated. Make it as simple as possible. Just look in the refrigerator, see what you have. I've given you a few tips here that you'd be able to use in order to make that decision. As far as the potatoes are concerned, if you don't like the peeling, you don't want to take the time to peel, then get potatoes that are the golden potatoes and just chop those up, boil them, and whip them up, and they whip very nicely. I happen to use a hand mixer. I didn't have to do that. If you cook them nice and soft and everything, you can use a hand mixer to mix them. You can also do it where they're not completely smooth, but they have a little bit of chunkiness to them, which is what I like. Again, I like textures, so I like it where you have different little things in there. And what I forgot to tell you is with the potatoes, once they've cooked, even in the water, once they finish cooking, you can season your water as well while they're, when you cut them up, you can season the water a little so that they're getting infused with that while they're cooking in the water. If you want, you can cook them in a vegetable broth so that it gets infused with that, or if you prefer, a beef broth, so that now it's getting infused with whatever juices you're putting in there. You want to make sure everything is layered all throughout. Okay, so these are a couple of tips on how to make your food very flavorful and very simple. It may sound, can't say that it does. It may sound more complicated than it is, but it's not. It's very easy and very easy to take just a simple product you have in order to make it something that's very delicious. I hope you enjoyed what you saw here. And if you do, what I'd like for you to do is give me some comments, give me suggestions on what you would like to see me produce here so that you'd get more information, and also share this. If you think it's beneficial to someone else, by all means share. So click like, share, and comment, and I'd appreciate it if you would do that. Thank you so much for joining me. We look forward to seeing you virtually again next week at one of our resource centers as soon as we can. Until then, stay active, healthy, and informed. I do have an important message for you as well. That is, all information, content, and material of this video is for informational purposes only and are not intended to serve as a substitute for the consultation, diagnosis, and/or medical treatment of a qualified physician or healthcare provider. The information contained on this video is compiled from a variety of sources and is not considered complete. Information is subject to change without notice, and that's because it changes every minute. We don't know. If you have a medical emergency, call your doctor or 911 immediately. And then I'd like to tell you that all content that's on here is royalty free. Again, thank you very much for watching, and I'd like for you to click like, share, and comment. Give me suggestions on something else you want, or if you have any other questions about cooking or nutrition, by all means, please do comment and I will get back to you and answer your question as quickly as I can. Thank you so much.